Wrestling. Was wrestling always something you grew up watching?
No, I wasn't a wrestling fan. I did know that wrestling came on like around midnight, but I was never awake to watch professional wrestling. So I had no idea what I was getting into. I just know that when I was in college playing football, Tully Blanchard, his father was a promoter in San Antonio, and that's where the interest in professional wrestling started. When I was a junior in college, that's the first time they mentioned to me that the father, Joe Blanchard, thought that I could have a great career in professional wrestling. And, I had no clue. I was a good football player. I thought I was going to do good in football and play in the pros, but found out it was pretty tough once I got there and gave wrestling a shot. And the rest is history.
Well, when you're playing football, I mean, a lot of a lot of football players go on to become professional wrestlers, as we know with The Rock and JBL and Ron Simmons and as many others. But I'm sure a lot of that, being on the gridiron helped prepare you for that lifestyle.
Oh, without a doubt, because professional wrestling needs athletes, and football players are athletes. We learn how to take punishment, punish the body, and the same thing happens in wrestling. People don't realize, but we do abuse our bodies quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's very intense whenever I've talked to people that talk about their training experiences. They talk about the workouts and the drills. It's a grind, and you have to really put your body through a lot, as you just said, a lot of punishment. Talk to me about your training experiences.
As far as weights or as far as the wrestling.
Everything, like the regimens
Well,
and
I started in 1977. Me and Tully Blanchard drove from San Antonio to Tampa, Florida, and Eddie Graham was the promoter there in Florida in Tampa. And I started training in the ring with a guy by the name of Hiro Matsuda. And they put you through the grind. I believe that their intention is to try to run you from the business. Before they even smarten you up, they work you to death. Till your tongue's hanging, and then they put you in the ring, and then they start wrestling with you, and then they do something what they call is they stretch you. So by stretch is they put you in holes that you have to give up, and they try to hurt you just enough to see if you are going to be worthwhile keeping, if you're going to be coming back. And I went through some hard workouts with Hiro Matsuda, and I kept coming back. And then after a while, they start taking it easier on you and start teaching you the business.
yeah, I mean, it is a lot of work, and you really have to want it to move up and up the ladder. And so, talk to me about some of the pieces of advice and words of wisdom that your trainers um, instilled in you, and stuff that you've applied to today, even outside of wrestling.
Well, when I first started wrestling, just working out, I used to go to the matches and just watch. The guys would tell me, just watch, be humble. And then once you start, go to other wrestlers and tell them to please watch your match and give you constructive criticism because it's a very hard business to learn. Like I mean, I had to learn how to how to how to crawl before I started walking and before I even started jogging and before I started running. It was a process like learning how to walk like a baby, because I didn't know anything about it. Uh, taking those back drops, I couldn't believe that, I was getting flipped over and landing on my back and flying out of the ring into the cement, learning how to fall on the cement. I used to be scared to death, because standing on the ring and looking down, it looked a pretty big drop, at the beginning. So, you're doing a lot of stuff as you're learning how to wrestle. uh, taking tackles, giving tackles, you know, taking bumps, slams, just hitting the ropes. You don't realize how hard those ropes are. After about 3 days of hitting the ropes, my right side, because you hit the with your right side, my lats were all purple, bruised up from the ropes. So we paid our dues. We did pay our dues, and it's a slow process to learn the business.
Yeah, I'd imagine, when you're looking at the canvas area and falling, especially like you're talking about falling like you're falling on cement. I mean, that is hard, you
Oh
know.
my God, yeah.
It really is, hard on the body. It's the wear and tear. You're taking all this punishment. Um, what was the biggest motivator for you as far as like keep going with everything?
Well, I almost quit, as a matter of fact, because I was working out. I was paying for an apartment. I wasn't making any money. I was just going to working out in the ring, working out, working out. I was sharing an apartment with Tully Blanchard, and we were splitting the apartment. Uh, and Terry Funk, I'm sure you're aware. There's a lot of guys that went to West Texas State that became professional wrestlers. And Terry Funk and Dory Funk, they were a family that ran Amarillo, and Terry was the world champion, and he came into Tampa to wrestle Dusty Rhodes, and he called me into. He was a bad guy back then. They used to keep the good guys and the bad guys separated, so they called me. He called me uh, for somebody to take me to the dressing room where he was at, and he says, "How do you like it, my boy?" And I said, "Well, I'm enjoying it. I think I'm learning." I said, "But." Because I had signed a contract to go back to play football with the BC Lions. And I said, I think I'm just going to go home and I'm going to start training for football again. This was sometime in February. I'd been doing it like close to 2 months. And he says, don't do anything. Let me talk to Eddie Graham. He was the world champion, he had a lot of pool. This was on a Friday night. Saturday morning, Eddie Graham called me in, and he took me out to breakfast, and we had a long talk. And I guess he figured out that I was sincere about wanting to become a professional wrestler, and he gave me a few bookings, and I thought I was going to be making more money than what I was. There were some of the bookings that I went to where I spent more money than I was making, and I said, man, I think I'm in the wrong business. And but before you know it, I'm on my way to Atlanta to wrestle out of Atlanta, Georgia, and they gave me a $300 guarantee a week, which compared to what I was making in Florida, that was a blessing.